Highly processed foods profoundly undermine the body's natural satiety mechanisms, leading to overeating, weight gain, and long-term metabolic disruption across all age groups. Unlike minimally processed foods, which are rich in fiber, protein, water, and complex carbohydrates that slow digestion and prolong fullness, ultra-processed foods are engineered to be rapidly consumed and rapidly digested. They are typically high in refined sugars, refined starches, added fats, and salt, and often incorporate flavor enhancers, emulsifiers, and other additives designed to maximize palatability. These characteristics make them especially potent at disrupting normal appetite regulation, encouraging people to eat more, faster, and with less awareness of physiological hunger signals. Over time, these effects accumulate, creating a cycle of chronic overeating and metabolic strain that becomes harder to reverse as people age. In children and adolescents, the impact on satiety is immediate and concerning. Young people have developing gastrointestinal systems and immature neural circuits responsible for appetite control, meaning they are more sensitive to cues from hyperpalatable foods than to internal hunger signals. Studies show that children who consume sugary drinks, packaged snacks, and ready-to-eat processed meals eat more total calories in a single sitting and report less fullness afterward compared with children consuming minimally processed, fiber-rich foods. The combination of rapid sugar absorption and low fiber content produces quick blood glucose spikes, triggering a surge in insulin that promotes fat storage and creates a rebound hunger effect within hours. Adolescents also tend to eat ultra-processed foods faster than natural whole foods, further limiting the brain's time to register fullness. The long-term danger is that these early habits train the brain and gut to expect highly palatable, low-satiety foods, weakening intrinsic appetite regulation and establishing a lifelong pattern of overconsumption. In young adults, highly processed foods continue to distort energy intake and fullness cues, but the mechanisms interact with lifestyle factors such as stress, sleep deprivation, and irregular schedules. College-aged and working adults consuming ultra-processed meals frequently underestimate caloric intake by hundreds of calories per meal, due in part to the food's high energy density and low satiety value. Fast eating, habitual snacking, and reliance on convenience foods override natural satiety signals. Chronic exposure trains the brain's reward pathways to prioritize sensory pleasure over physiological hunger, increasing the likelihood of overeating and emotional eating. This stage is particularly risky because adults often interpret fullness misalignment as a normal part of busy modern life, rather than a sign of systemic disruption in appetite regulation. Middle-aged adults face compounded risks due to physiological changes that reduce metabolic flexibility. Resting metabolic rate declines, insulin sensitivity diminishes, and hormonal regulators of appetite, such as leptin and ghrelin, become less responsive. Consuming ultra-processed foods under these conditions exacerbates the disconnection between hunger and intake. Meals that appear normal by volume may deliver far more calories than needed, promoting weight gain even in individuals who perceive themselves as moderately active. Fast eating and repeated exposure to hyperpalatable foods further blunt satiety signals, while chronic overconsumption reinforces leptin resistance, a key driver of obesity and metabolic syndrome. Over decades, the brain and body adapt to expect rapid, high-intensity reward from food, making the transition back to minimally processed, satiating foods difficult and often unsatisfying. In older adults, the consequences of ultra-processed foods on satiety are particularly severe because age-related declines in digestive efficiency, hormone sensitivity, and neural signaling amplify the mismatch between energy intake and physiological need. Ghrelin fluctuations can create unnecessary hunger, while blunted leptin signaling reduces the sensation of fullness, even after meals. Combined with a slower metabolism, these disruptions can lead to rapid accumulation of visceral fat, increased insulin resistance, and greater cardiovascular risk. Older adults often rely on ultra-processed foods for convenience, affordability, and taste, yet these foods accelerate frailty, chronic inflammation, and metabolic dysfunction. Even small, Repeated episodes of overconsumption can compound over weeks and months, creating a cascade of health problems that may feel gradual but are biologically significant. Across all age groups, the fundamental issue is that ultra-processed foods short-circuit the natural satiety system. They are eaten quickly, digest rapidly, and deliver energy in ways that overwhelm the body's hormonal and neural feedback loops. Fiber, protein, and volume, the components that naturally slow eating, promote fullness, and regulate blood sugar, are minimized or absent, while flavor, texture, and additives maximize pleasure. The result is a cycle in which people eat more calories than needed, fail to recognize satiety, and reinforce behavioral patterns that promote overeating. Over time, repeated exposure increases appetite dysregulation, contributes to weight gain, worsens insulin resistance, and fuels chronic inflammation. The warning is stark. Consumption of ultra-processed foods undermines appetite control across the lifespan. From the early establishment of overeating habits in childhood to entrenched metabolic dysfunction in adulthood and accelerated weight and fat accumulation in seniors, the consequences are cumulative and increasingly difficult to reverse. Highly processed diets are not merely less healthy, they actively disrupt the body's ability to regulate energy intake, turning everyday meals into drivers of chronic disease, obesity, and metabolic decline. The longer these foods dominate the diet, the more resistant the body becomes to normal satiety cues, locking individuals into patterns of overconsumption that accelerate aging and disease risk.